They say you remember the exact moment your life changes forever. For me, it wasn't a dramatic revelation or a life-altering choice. It was standing in a dim office that smelled like cigar smoke and old leather, watching Sister Margaret count cash with trembling fingers. $20,000. That's what I was worth. $20,000 and a signed contract that made me the property of a man I'd never met. "I'm sorry, Simeon," Sister Margaret whispered, but she wouldn't look at me. Couldn't look at me. "You're 18 now. The state funding stopped last month, and we simply can't afford to keep you anymore." I wanted to scream at her. Wanted to ask why she called him of all people. Wanted to know what kind of orphanage sold children to mafia bosses when they aged out of the system. But my voice was stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat, suffocating under the weight of betrayal. The lawyer sitting across from us, a sharp-faced beta woman in an expensive suit, slid a document across the desk. "Sign here, here, and here." Initial at the bottom. My hands shook as I picked up the pen. The words blurred together. Exclusive services. Available upon demand. Termination clause at buyer's discretion only. Duration, 1 year, renewable. This wasn't a job offer. This was ownership. I signed my name 3 times. Each signature felt like giving away a piece of myself I'd never get back. Sister Margaret took the money and left without saying goodbye. The lawyer packed up her briefcase and disappeared into the hallway. And I was alone in that office, my entire future reduced to ink on paper and the whims of a stranger who'd purchased the right to use my body whenever he wanted. The door opened. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. My Omega instincts were already screaming at me to submit, to bow, to make myself smaller. The alpha pheromones that rolled into the room were overwhelming, dark, dangerous, suffocating in their intensity. "Look at me." The voice was deep, commanding, the kind that didn't expect to be refused. I forced myself to turn around, my hands clenched into fists at my sides to keep them from shaking. Vincenzo Moretti was nothing like I'd imagined. At 50 years old, he should have looked weathered, tired. Instead, he looked carved from stone. Sharp jaw, dusted with silver stubble. Dark eyes that saw too much. Salt and pepper hair swept back from a face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so terrifyingly cold. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Sister Margaret's entire orphanage. His presence filled the room, made the air feel thinner, harder to breathe. His eyes moved over me slowly, assessing, not with kindness or even interest, with possession, like I was a car he just purchased and he was checking for defects. "You're smaller than I expected," he said finally. "But you'll do." The casual dismissal in those words made my stomach turn. I wasn't a person to him. I was a thing. A purchase. "How old are you really?" he asked. 18. My voice came out steadier than I felt. As of 3 weeks ago. Perfect. Something dark flickered in his expression. Satisfaction, maybe. Old enough that no one can question the contract. Young enough that you haven't been ruined by other alphas. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Like my inexperience was a feature he'd specifically paid for. "Do you understand what you signed?" Vincenzo asked, moving closer. Close enough that I could smell his pheromones, cedar and smoke, and something darker I couldn't name. My mouth was dry. "I'm to provide services. When you need them." "Services." He smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. Such a polite way to say it. "Let me be clearer, Omega. I bought you because I have needs. Ruts that need to be satisfied. Urges that require an Omega's body to manage. You will be available to me whenever I want you. Day or night. No refusals. No complaints. That's what I paid for." The bluntness of it stole my breath. I'd known, on some level, what this arrangement would be. But hearing it stated so coldly, so matter-of-factly, made it real in a way that terrified me. "Any questions?" he asked, but his tone made it clear he didn't actually care if I had any. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "And if I refuse?" "You won't." It wasn't a threat, just a certainty. "Because you signed a contract. Because you have nowhere else to go. And because I always get what I pay for." He turned and walked toward the door. "Come. The car is waiting." I grabbed my backpack, everything I owned fit inside one worn bag, and followed him out of the office, out of the orphanage, out of the only life I'd ever known. into the ownership of a man who'd made it very clear what he wanted from me. Hi, besties. Welcome to Cozy BL Corner. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy BL stories like this, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, turn on a notification bell, and share it with someone who'd love it too, as it encourages us to work harder. The drive to Vincenzo's estate took 45 minutes. I spent every second of it pressed against the door, trying to make myself as small as possible. He didn't speak, didn't look at me, just stared out the window while typing on his phone, his jaw tight, with whatever business consumed his attention. I caught glimpses of his messages. Phrases like, make an example, and I don't care about his family, and dispose of it properly. Each word made my stomach clench tighter. This was real. I've been sold to a man who talked about disposal, like he was discussing trash pickup. We pulled up to a massive estate surrounded by high walls topped with security cameras. The gate opened automatically, revealing armed guards at strategic points. As we drove up the long driveway, I saw more men, all of them armed, all of them watching. The house itself was a modern fortress, all glass and steel and sharp angles that screamed wealth and danger in equal measure. Vincenzo's phone rang. He answered without looking at me. Talk. A pause. Then his voice dropped to something lethal. I told you what would happen if he missed another payment. I don't make idle threats, Marcus. You have until midnight. Another pause. His eyes finally flicked to me, cold and assessing, before returning to the window. Then his daughter will learn what happens when people steal from me. Make sure he knows that before you finish. He ended the call and pocketed his phone like he'd just ordered takeout instead of someone's execution. My hands were shaking. I pressed them together in my lap, trying to steady myself, trying not to think about what finish meant. The car stopped. An older beta man opened my door. Welcome, sir. I'm Antonio, the household manager. I climbed out on unsteady legs. Antonio's eyes were kind, but there was pity in them that made me feel worse. Mr. Moretti, Antonio said carefully, shall I show the young man to his quarters? Do that. Vincenzo was already walking toward the entrance, his phone ringing again. And Antonio? Make sure he understands the rules. All of them. Antonio nodded, his expression carefully neutral. Of course, sir. I followed Antonio through a maze of hallways. Staff members moved efficiently, their eyes averted. No one looked at me. No one acknowledged my existence. Here we are, Antonio said, opening a door on the third floor. The room was beautiful. King-size bed with silk sheets. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. A sitting area with furniture that looked like it had never been used. A beautiful cage. The closet has been stocked with appropriate clothing, Antonio said, his voice gentle. Bathroom through that door. Meals will be brought to you until Mr. Moretti decides otherwise. Antonio, I said quietly, what are the rules? He hesitated, something like regret crossing his face. You don't leave the property without Mr. Moretti's explicit permission. You respond immediately when he sends for you, day or night. You don't ask questions about his business. You don't speak to staff about personal matters. He paused, and you don't refuse him. Ever. The words landed like stones in my stomach. And if I do? Antonio's expression tightened. Mr. Moretti doesn't believe in second chances. I've worked for him for 15 years. I've seen what happens to people who disappoint him. He met my eyes. Don't disappoint him. He left before I could respond. I opened the closet. Designer clothes in my exact size. But mixed among them were silk robes, so thin I could see through them. Sleep clothes that barely covered anything. Items clearly chosen for someone else's convenience, not my comfort. I sank onto the bed, my chest tight with panic I couldn't release. This was my life now. Property of a man who ordered executions over the phone and expected absolute obedience from the Omega he'd purchased. The first week passed in agonizing isolation. Antonio brought meals I couldn't eat. I explored the house during the day, always aware of the guards watching, the cameras tracking my movements. I found the library, massive, filled with books in multiple languages. It became my refuge. But every night, I lay awake waiting for the knock on my door, waiting for Vincenzo to send for me. It never came. I saw him occasionally, glimpses in hallways. His voice raised in his office, speaking Italian in tones that made my Omega instinct scream danger. Once I heard a gunshot from somewhere in the East Wing, followed by shouting. No one acknowledged it happened. On the 8th day, I was in the library when Antonio found me. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you." In his office. Now, my hands started shaking immediately. Why? He doesn't explain himself to staff. Antonio's voice was gentle but firm. "You need to go now, Simeon. Don't keep him waiting." I followed him through the house, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might be sick. Antonio stopped outside a heavy wooden door. "Remember," he said quietly, "don't argue. Don't cry. Don't give him any reason to." He stopped himself. "Just be compliant." He knocked once, then opened the door. Vincenzo's office was darker than the rest of the house. Heavy curtains blocked most of the natural light. He sat behind a massive desk, reviewing papers. Blood spattered the sleeve of his white shirt. Fresh blood. I froze in the doorway. "Come in." Close the door. He didn't look up. I did, my legs barely supporting me. The smell of copper and gunpowder filled the room. "Do you know why I haven't sent for you yet?" Vincenzo asked, still focused on his papers. He signed something, set it aside, then finally looked at me. "I wanted you to understand something first. Wanted you to see what kind of man owns you." He stood, crossing to a cabinet where he poured himself whiskey. "The blood on my shirt belongs to a man who stole from me. He thought he could hide, thought his connections would protect him." Vincenzo smiled. It was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. They didn't. He moved closer, and my Omega instinct screamed at me to run. But there was nowhere to go. "I'm not a good man, Simeon. I built my empire on fear and violence. I've killed more people than I can count, ruined families, destroyed lives." He stopped directly in front of me. "And I will do the same to you if you give me reason to." "I won't," I whispered, hating how small my voice sounded. "No, you won't." His hand came up to grip my chin, forcing me to look at him. "Because you're smart enough to understand that obedience keeps you safe. Defiance gets you hurt." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I flinched. "I'm going into rut in 3 weeks," he said, releasing me. "I've been taking preventatives to delay it until you settled in. But the time is coming, and when it does, I will use you exactly as I paid to. Do you understand?" "Yes," I choked out. "Good." He returned to his desk. "You can explore the grounds. Use the library, the pool, whatever you like. Antonio will give you an allowance for personal items. But remember, you're here for one purpose. Don't ever forget what you are to me." "What am I?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He looked up, his dark eyes meeting mine with brutal honesty. "A possession, nothing more." The next 2 weeks were psychological torture. Vincenzo didn't summon me, but his presence was everywhere. I'd see him through windows, handling business that involved men kneeling and begging. I'd hear gunshots from the basement. I'd watch him leave in the middle of the night, returning hours later with blood on his hands. Antonio tried to make things easier. He'd bring me books, suggest walks in the garden, tell me stories about the estate that carefully avoided mentioning what Vincenzo actually did. But even Antonio couldn't hide the fear in his eyes when Vincenzo's mood darkened. I started drawing again. It was the only way to process the terror, to give my hands something to do besides shake. I filled sketchbooks with dark images, cages, shadows, eyes watching from darkness. One afternoon, I was in the library when I found a section I hadn't noticed before. Books about Omega rights, psychology, educational programs, and in one book, a handwritten dedication. "For Marco, you deserved better than what this family gave you. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. V, that was my brother." I spun around. Vincenzo stood in the doorway, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. "I'm sorry," I said quickly, putting the book back. "I didn't mean to intrude." He was 19 when they married him off. An Omega like you. Vincenzo moved into the room, his steps heavy. The family that bought him treated him like an object, used him during their ruts without care, broke him piece by piece. He drank deeply. He killed himself 6 months into the arrangement. Poison. Left a note saying he couldn't survive being nothing. My chest tightened. "I'm so sorry." Are you? His eyes met mine, and there was something raw there. Something almost human. Sorry enough that you won't make the same choice? Because I need to know, Simeon. I need to know if you're going to survive what I'm about to do to you. The question hung in the air between us. I'll survive, I said, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. See that you do. He finished his whiskey. Because I don't want another death on my conscience. Even if I'm the one causing your suffering. He left, and I stood there holding that book, trying to understand the man who'd grieve his brother while buying another Omega to use the exact same way. 3 days before Vincenzo's rut was scheduled to hit, everything changed. I was in my room when I heard shouting. Not the usual business discussions. This was different. Panicked. Urgent. I cracked my door open and saw Antonio rushing past. Get the doctor. Now. I should have stayed in my room. Should have followed the rules. But something pulled me into the hallway, down the stairs, toward the commotion. A group of Vincenzo's men clustered near the entrance. In the center, Vincenzo knelt over someone, a young man, maybe 20, bleeding heavily from his chest. Stay with me, Vincenzo ordered, his hands pressed against the wound. Paolo, stay with me. Boss, he's losing too much blood. Then stop standing there and do something. Vincenzo roared. I'd never heard that tone from him before. Not cold calculation. Not ruthless command. Panic. Pure, desperate panic. The young man, Paolo, coughed blood. Boss, I'm sorry. I wasn't fast enough. You were fast enough. You took the bullet for me. That's more than enough. Vincenzo's hands were shaking. Where the fuck is the doctor? He's not going to make it, boss, one of the men said quietly. The shot went through his lung. Then we take him to the hospital. We can't. The cops are looking for us after the warehouse incident. If we show up with a gunshot wound. I don't care. Vincenzo's voice broke. I don't care about the cops or the consequences. We're taking him now. But Paolo had stopped breathing. His eyes stared at nothing. Vincenzo's hands stilled on the wound. For a long moment, he just knelt there, covered in blood that was no longer pumping. Then he stood slowly, his expression shifting from panic to something frighteningly empty. Find out who sent the shooter, he said, his voice flat. Find his family, his friends, everyone he's ever cared about. Boss, I want them all dead by morning. Every single one. I want the message to be clear. When you come for me, I take everything from you. The men scattered. Vincenzo stood there in the foyer, covered in Paolo's blood, staring at nothing. I should have left. Should have gone back to my room. But my feet carried me forward. Mr. Moretti, I said softly. His eyes snapped to me, and for a second I saw pure rage. Then recognition. Then something that looked almost like shame. Go to your room, Simeon. You're covered in blood. I said go to your room. The roar made me flinch, but I didn't run. Couldn't run. He died protecting you, I said quietly. He chose to take that bullet. That means something. It means I get to live while good men die. His voice was rough, broken. It means I'm a poison that destroys everything I touch. Now go before I destroy you too. This time I obeyed. But as I walked away, I glanced back to see Vincenzo sinking to the floor, his head in his bloody hands. For the first time since arriving, I understood something. Vincenzo Moretti wasn't just a monster. He was a man drowning in the violence he'd created, taking everyone down with him, including me. The next morning, I woke to silence. The kind of silence that felt wrong. I ventured downstairs carefully. The foyer had been cleaned. No trace of blood remained. But the house felt different. Darker. I found Antonio in the kitchen, his face grave. What happened? I asked. Mr. Moretti kept his word. 7 people dead by dawn. The shooter's entire family. Antonio's voice was flat. And he did it himself. All 7. Personally. My stomach turned. Why would he do that himself? Because he wanted them to know it was him. Wanted them to see his face before they died. Antonio met my eyes. He's in a dark place right now, Simeon. Darker than usual. His rut is going to hit in the next day or 2. And when it does. He trailed off. When it does, what? Be careful. He's not himself. The violence, Paolo's death, the guilt, it's all building. And you're going to be the one he takes it out on. Fear shot through me. Antonio, I can't. You don't have a choice. Neither of us do. He gripped my shoulder. Just survive it. That's all you can do. The knock came that night. I'd been dreading it for weeks, but somehow it still caught me unprepared. A sharp rap on my door, then one of Vincenzo's men. Mr. Moretti needs you. Now. My whole body started shaking. Is his rut? Now, the man repeated. I followed him through the silent house, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. We stopped outside Vincenzo's bedroom. The man knocked once, then opened the door and gestured me inside. The room was dark. Heavy curtains blocked the windows. Vincenzo stood by the bed, already shirtless, his scarred chest heaving with barely controlled breathing. I could smell his pheromones immediately. Thick, overwhelming, the first stages of rut building into something unstoppable. Close the door, he said, his voice already rougher than normal. I did, my hands trembling. Come here. I forced my feet to move forward, stopping a few feet away from him. Vincenzo's eyes tracked over me like a predator. I need to see you, before the rut takes over completely, while I still have some control. See me? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Strip. Now. Shame burned through me, but I reached for the hem of my shirt with shaking hands. I pulled it over my head, letting it fall to the floor. My fingers fumbled with the button of my jeans. Slower, Vincenzo said, moving closer. I want to see everything I paid for. I pushed my jeans down, stepping out of them, standing there in just my underwear, exposed under his hungry gaze. All of it. My face burned as I hooked my thumbs in the waistband and pushed down my underwear. I stood there naked, every instinct screaming at me to cover myself, to run. Hands at your sides, he ordered. I lowered my hands, forcing myself to stand still as he circled me slowly. His pheromones were getting stronger, darker. I could see the rut starting to take hold. The way his pupils dilated, the tremor in his hands, the tension in every muscle. You're perfect, he said, his voice dropping to something guttural. Untouched. Innocent. Everything I wanted. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off his body. Do you know what I'm going to do to you? I couldn't speak. Could only shake my head. I'm going to claim you. Mark you. Make you mine in every way possible. His hand came up to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there. And you're going to let me. Because you belong to me. Please, I whispered. I'm scared. Good. You should be. His thumb pressed against my pulse point. Get on the bed. I didn't move. Couldn't move. My body had frozen with fear. Vincenzo's expression darkened. I said, get on the bed. Don't make me repeat myself. I can't. The words tumbled out. Please, I can't. I'm not ready. You'll never be ready. His hand tightened on my throat. Not choking, but controlling. But ready or not, you're mine. And I always take what's mine. He released me and stepped back. Get on the bed. On your back. Spread your legs. Now. Tears streamed down my face, but I climbed onto the bed. My whole body was shaking so badly I could barely lie down. I stared at the ceiling, waiting for the pain, waiting for him to take what he'd paid for. I heard him approach, felt the mattress dip under his weight. His hands gripped my thighs, spreading them wider. Look at me, he commanded. I forced myself to meet his eyes. They were almost black now, the rut taking over everything human in him. Say it, he growled. Say you're mine. I'm yours. I choked out. Again. I'm yours. The words came out broken, desperate. He positioned himself over me, and I felt him hard and demanding against my entrance. This was it, the moment I'd been dreading since I signed that contract. Please, I whispered one last time. Please don't. And then, he stopped. His whole body went rigid. His breathing was ragged, harsh, but he wasn't moving. I opened my eyes to find him staring down at me, something flickering behind the rut, something human struggling to surface. Fuck, he muttered. His arms were shaking with the effort of holding himself back. Fuck. He pulled away suddenly, rolling off me. He stood, pacing the room like a caged animal. His rut was still clearly controlling him. I could see it in every tense line of his body, could smell it in his pheromones. Get dressed, he said, his voice strained. I didn't move, too shocked to process what was happening. Get dressed, he roared, and get out. Now. I scrambled off the bed, grabbing my clothes. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely pull them on. Go back to your room, Vincenzo said, still not looking at me. Lock the door. Don't come out until Antonio tells you it's safe. But you're Rut. I'll handle it. He moved to a cabinet, pulling out suppressants. The heavy-duty kind, the ones that were dangerous to take during an active rut. I'll handle it without you. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why did you stop? He finally looked at me, and the raw anguish in his eyes stole my breath. Because I saw Marco's face. Because I saw what they did to him. And I realized I'm doing the exact same thing. His voice broke. Get out, Simeon. Before I change my mind. Before the rut takes over completely and I can't stop again. I ran down the hallway to my room, slamming the door and locking it. I slid down to the floor as sobs racked my body. Behind me, I could hear Vincenzo's roar of frustration echoing through the house. The sound of something breaking. The sound of a man at war with himself. And I didn't know whether to be grateful or terrified that he'd let me go. For 3 days, I didn't see Vincenzo. The sound from his room were horrifying, crashes, roars of pain, the kind of suffering that came from fighting your own biology. Antonio brought me meals, his expression grim. He's taking massive doses of suppressants. It's dangerous, possibly fatal, but he refuses to send for you. Why? I asked. Why is he doing this to himself? Because he doesn't want to be like them, the family that destroyed his brother. Antonio sat down heavily. He bought you for the same reason they bought Marco. But seeing you terrified, hearing you beg, it broke something in him, reminded him of what they did. So what happens now? I don't know. I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 15 years. I've seen him do terrible things without hesitation. But this, fighting his own rut to spare you, I've never seen anything like it. On the 4th day, the house finally went quiet. That evening, Antonio knocked on my door. Mr. Moretti wants to see you. In the library. My stomach clenched with fear. Is he? The rut has passed. But Simeon, he's not well. The suppressants did damage. Just be careful. I found Vincenzo in the library, sitting in a chair by the window. He looked like death. His skin was pale, dark circles under his eyes. His hands trembled slightly as he held a glass of whiskey. Sit, he said without looking at me. I sat in the chair across from him, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Vincenzo set down his glass and finally met my eyes. I owe you an explanation, he said, his voice rough. About Marco. About why I bought you. About why I stopped. I waited, barely breathing. Marco was 19 when the family arranged his marriage. He didn't want it, but in our world, you don't refuse family orders. They sold him to the Castellano family. 3 brothers, all alphas, all cruel. Vincenzo's jaw clenched. They used him during their ruts. All 3 of them, sometimes at once. They treated him like an object, like he existed only for their pleasure. My stomach turned. I tried to help him, tried to buy out his contract, but the Castellanos refused. So they paid good money for him, and they'd keep him until he died or they got bored. Vincenzo's voice dropped. He chose death. Left me a note saying he couldn't survive being nothing but a body to be used. I'm sorry, I whispered. After he died, I swore I'd never let anyone else suffer that way. I'd never reduce an Omega to just their biology. I'd be better than the monsters who killed my brother. His laugh was bitter. But then I bought you. Told myself it was different. That giving you safety in exchange for services was somehow better than what they did to Marco. But it's not different, is it? I said quietly. No. He met my eyes. It's exactly the same. I'm exactly like them. Then why did you stop? Why fight the rut? Because I saw your face. Saw how terrified you were. And I heard Marco's voice in my head, begging them to stop, and they never did. Vincenzo's hands clenched into fists. I couldn't become them. I couldn't take you while you looked at me with that fear. So I stopped, and nearly killed yourself with suppressants. Better me than you. He stood slowly, moving to the window. I'm releasing you from the contract, Simeon. You're free to go. I'll give you money, set you up with education, housing, whatever you need. But you don't owe me anything. Not your body. Not your time. Nothing. I stared at him, trying to process. Just like that? You're letting me go. Just like that. Why? Because keeping you here, knowing what I almost did to you, I can't live with that. I've done terrible things in my life. Killed people. Destroyed families. But I won't do to you what they did to Marco. He turned to face me. You deserve better. Even if that means letting you go. I should have felt relieved. Should have jumped at the chance to escape. But something kept me in that chair. What if I don't want to go? The word surprised us both. Vincenzo's expression shifted to confusion. You can't mean that. I don't know what I mean. I stood, moving closer to him. You bought me. Terrified me. Almost used me. But then you stopped. You fought your own biology, nearly killed yourself, because you didn't want to hurt me. That's not nothing. It doesn't erase what I am. What I do. No, it doesn't. I stopped a few feet away from him. But maybe it means you're not just a monster. Maybe you're a man trying not to be. Simeon, let me stay, I said. Not as property. Not as something you bought. But as, I don't know, a person. With choices. Why would you choose to stay with someone like me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Because I have nowhere else to go. Because at least here, I know what to expect. Because I took a breath. Because I want to understand you. The man who grieves his brother, but runs a mafia empire. The man who orders executions, but fights his own rut to spare an omega he barely knows. Vincenzo studied me for a long moment. If you stay, it's on different terms. No contract. No obligations. You can leave whenever you want. I won't touch you unless you explicitly agree. And if I ever go into rut again, I'll lock myself away and handle it alone. Okay, I said softly. You need to understand what you're agreeing to, he continued. My world is violent. Dangerous. People die around me. I have enemies who would hurt you to get to me. This isn't a fairy tale, Simeon. It's a nightmare with brief moments of daylight. I understand. Do you? He moved closer. Yesterday, I killed a man who betrayed me. Shot him in the head while he begged for mercy. Tonight, I'll probably do something similar. That's who I am. That's what I do. I know, I said. And I did. I'd seen enough of my time here to understand exactly what Vincenzo Moretti was capable of. Then you're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. Something almost like a smile crossed his face. Maybe both. The next few weeks were strange, undefined. Vincenzo kept his word. He didn't demand anything from me. Didn't even suggest it. Instead, he gave me space. Freedom within the property. Money to buy whatever I wanted. Art supplies appeared in my room without explanation. Antonio mentioned Vincenzo had noticed my sketches and thought I might want proper materials. The gesture was small, but it meant something. He was paying attention, seeing me as more than the body he'd bought. I started spending hours drawing and painting. The work was dark, visceral, images of cages and blood and eyes watching from shadows. But it was mine. It belonged to me. Vincenzo would sometimes stand in the doorway, watching. He never interrupted, just observed for a moment before moving on. We had dinner together occasionally. He'd ask about my art. I'd ask carefully neutral questions about his day, avoiding the parts where he talked about business. We'd dance around each other, two people trying to figure out how to exist in the same space without the contract defining everything. But I also started to see more of the darkness. Vincenzo didn't hide it anymore. One night, I heard screaming from his office. Through the partially open door, I saw Vincenzo standing over a man tied to a chair. Blood dripped from the man's face. I'll ask you one more time, Vincenzo said, his voice deadly calm. Where's my shipment? I don't know, I swear. The sound of bone breaking cut off the man's words. He screamed. Wrong answer. Vincenzo's tone didn't change. Like he was discussing the weather instead of torturing someone. Let's try this differently. I'm going to break every finger on your right hand. Then your left. Then we'll move to toes. Eventually, you'll tell me what I want to know. The only question is how much pain you want to endure first. I must have made a sound, a gasp, maybe, because Vincenzo's head snapped toward the door. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he crossed the door and stepped into the hallway, closing it behind him. His hands were bloody. His expression was cold. You shouldn't be here, he said. I heard screaming. And you came to investigate? Something flickered in his eyes. Most people run from screaming, Simeon. They don't walk toward it. I want to make sure you were okay. He laughed, the sound harsh. I'm torturing a man who stole from me. Do I look like I need protection? Behind the door, the man screamed again. I flinched. Vincenzo didn't. This is what I do, he said quietly. This is who I am. I hurt people, break them, make them wish they'd never been born. And I don't lose sleep over it. He moved closer, his bloody hand coming up to cut my face, leaving a smear of red on my cheek. You said you wanted to understand me. This is understanding. Can you handle it? I should have run. Should have been horrified. But I'd already seen enough to know what Vincenzo was. This wasn't a revelation, just confirmation. How long will it take? I asked. He blinked, surprised. What? How long until he tells you what you want to know? An hour. Maybe 2. Then I'll wait in the library. I met his eyes. And when you're done, wash your hands before dinner. I don't want blood on the silverware. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or respect. You're not what I expected, he said softly. Neither are you. He dropped his hand and went back into the office. The screaming resumed, and I went to the library, trying not to think about what was happening down the hall. Trying not to think about how I wasn't running. 2 hours later, Vincenzo appeared in the library doorway. His hands were clean, his shirt changed. No trace of blood remained. Did you get your information? I asked, not looking up from my book. Yes. Is he dead? Not yet. He'll wish he was. I set down my book. You don't have to hide this part of yourself from me. I already know what you do. Knowing and seeing are different things. I've been seeing it since I arrived. I met his eyes, the blood on your shirts, the screaming from the basement, the bodies that disappear. You think I'm blind. I think you're choosing to ignore it. No, I'm choosing to accept it. I stood. You're a monster, Vincenzo. You do terrible things. But you're also the man who fought his own rut to keep from hurting me. Who set up an art studio because you noticed I liked to draw. Who grieves his brother enough to collect books about omega rights. I moved closer. You're not one thing. You're everything. And I'm choosing to stay anyway. Why? The question sounded almost desperate. Why stay with someone like me? Because you're the first person who's ever given me choices. The words came out raw, honest. At the orphanage, I had no choices. When Sister Margaret sold me, I had no choices. But you let me go. Released me from the contract. Told me I could leave whenever I wanted. I stopped in front of him. You gave me power in a situation where I had none. That means something. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, he cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone. You're going to break my heart, Simeon. You're going to make me care, and then you're going to leave. Maybe. Or maybe I'll stay, and you'll break mine. I leaned into his touch slightly. Either way, it's my choice to make. Your choice, he repeated softly, like the words were precious. We stood there, inches apart, the library quiet around us. Somewhere in the house, a man was suffering because Vincenzo had ordered it. Somewhere, people were dying because Vincenzo had decided they should. But here, in this moment, he was just a man touching my face like I was something valuable. I want to kiss you, he said quietly. But I won't. Not until you ask me to. Why wait for me to ask? Because everything else between us started with me taking. This, whatever this becomes, needs to start with you giving. The distinction mattered. I understood that. So I nodded, stepping back. Then I'll let you know when I'm ready. Whenever that is. He dropped his hand. I'll wait. The turning point came 3 weeks later. I woke to chaos. Gunfire. Shouting. The sound of windows shattering. I grabbed the robe on my bed and cracked my door open. Smoke filled the hallway. Men were running, weapons drawn. We're under attack, someone shouted. East Wing is compromised. My Omega instinct screamed at me to hide. But I needed to know if Vincenzo was safe. I made my way downstairs, staying close to the walls. The foyer was chaos. Bodies, some of Vincenzo's men, some strangers, littered the floor. Antonio was barking orders, coordinating the defense. Where's Vincenzo? I asked, grabbing his arm. His office. He's pinned down. Antonio's eyes widened. Get down. He shoved me aside as gunfire erupted. I hit the floor hard. When I looked up, Antonio was clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. I'm fine, he gritted out. Get to the safe room. I'm not hiding while Vincenzo's in danger. I ran before he could stop me. I didn't have a plan. Just knew that Vincenzo had fought his own biology to keep me safe. I wouldn't let him die alone. I made it to his office. The door was barricaded. I pounded on it. Vincenzo! It's Simeon. The door cracked open. One of his men pulled me inside quickly. Vincenzo was behind his desk, gun in hand. When he saw me, fury flashed across his face. What the fuck are you doing here? I needed to know you were alive. So you walked through a war zone? He grabbed my arm, pulling me behind the desk. Are you insane? Probably. Despite everything, he almost smiled. You're going to give me a heart attack. Gunfire hit the door. His men returned fire through gaps in the barricade. How many? I asked. At least 15. Castellano's men. Revenge for Paolo. He checked his ammunition. They want me dead. How long can we hold? Not long. His jaw clenched. But I'll be damned if I let them take you. Me? You think I don't know what they do to an Omega connected to me? His hand found mine, squeezing hard. I'd burn this city before I let them touch you. The words made something warm bloom in my chest. Boss, they're bringing explosives. Vincenzo's expression went cold. We move. Now. What followed was chaos. Vincenzo moved like a predator, taking down anyone in our path. His men flanked us as we fought toward the safe room. I watched him kill 3 men without hesitation. Saw the ruthless mafia boss in action. And I wasn't scared of him. I was scared for him. We made it to the safe room. Vincenzo shoved me inside, then followed, engaging the locks. Radio for backup. He ordered his men. I want the Castellanos wiped out by morning. Then he turned to me, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? No. Are you? I'm fine. His hand stilled on my face. What you did was incredibly stupid and incredibly brave. I wasn't going to hide while you died. Why not? You don't owe me anything. Because somewhere along the way, I started to care about you. The confession came out easier than expected. I don't know when it happened, but it did. His expression softened. Simeon, kiss me, I said. He went still. What? You said you'd wait until I asked. I'm asking. Kiss me. We're in the middle of an attack. This is exactly the right time. I moved closer, because I just watched you kill 3 men. I saw the monster everyone's afraid of. And I'm still here, still asking. For a moment, he just stared. Then his hand slid into my hair, and he pulled me close, his lips crashing onto mine. The kiss was desperate, fierce, full of weeks of tension and denial. His other hand gripped my waist, holding me like I might disappear. I kissed him back with everything I had. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. That was my choice, I said. Remember that. I'll remember everything about you. The attack ended by dawn. 15 of Castellano's men dead. The family finished. I found Vincenzo in his office, surveying the damage. Blood stained the floors. Bullet holes marked the walls. It's over, he said. The Castellanos are finished. Good, I said. He glanced at me, surprised. Good. They killed Paolo. Tried to kill you. I'm not going to mourn them. You're starting to sound like one of us. Maybe I am. I moved beside him. Is this what it's always like? Yes. Endless violence and revenge. He turned to face me. Last night you said you cared. Are you sure? Because this is what caring about me means. I'm sure. I'm terrified, but I'm sure. You should leave. Take the money and run. I'm not leaving. Why not? You're also the man who stopped. Who gave me choices. Who looks at my art like it matters. I took his bloody hand. I'm not saying I love you. Not yet. But I want to try. And if it doesn't work, then I'll deal with that when it happens. But right now, I'm choosing you. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. You're going to ruin me. Make me human again. Or save you. Maybe it'll save us both. The months that followed were complicated. Vincenzo kept his promises, never pushed, never demanded. But he was present, coffee appearing while I worked, his hand finding mine at dinner, watching me paint with something soft in his eyes. The darkness was always there. The screaming, the blood, the executions, and I stayed. We had our first real fight 6 weeks after the attack. A woman begged for her husband's life. He'd stolen from Vincenzo. We have children, she pleaded. Should have thought of that before he stole, Vincenzo said coldly. He ordered the man killed, the family threatened. I confronted him. You're going to make children orphans? He knew the rules. He has children. Actions have consequences. His tone was sharp. This is what I do. I'm disgusted, I said. Then leave. His jaw clenched. If you can't stomach it, get out. Maybe I should. I expected him to argue. He didn't. For 2 days, we didn't speak. On the third day, Antonio told me the man had returned with the money plus extra. Vincenzo had let him live. Business flexibility, Vincenzo claimed when I confronted him. You let him live because I was angry. Don't flatter yourself. But there was no heat in his words. Thank you, I said. I'm still a monster. One act of mercy doesn't change that. It's a start. It's a crack in my armor. One you created. He met my eyes. You make me weak. Would you rather I leave? No. The word came fast, almost desperate. I want you to stay, even if it makes me weak. I moved to him, taking his hands. You don't have to be only one thing. What if the monster is all there is? Then I'll care about the monster. I met his eyes, because even monsters can change. He pulled me into his lap, arms wrapping around me. You're the only good thing in my life. Then don't let me go. He kissed me then, soft and deep and full of something that felt like love. 3 months later, Vincenzo took me to a charity gala. His first public appearance with me. Everyone will speculate about who you are, he warned. What should I tell them? The truth. That you're with me because you choose to be. The gala was beautiful people in expensive clothes, all dangerous beneath the polish. They looked at Vincenzo with fear and respect. And they looked at me with curiosity and judgment. This is Simeon. Vincenzo introduced me to a silver-haired alpha. He's under my protection. The words were a warning everyone understood. Later, a woman approached on the balcony. Mrs. Castellano, Vincenzo said coldly. I survived your massacre, she said. And I want to tell your Omega what kind of man he belongs to. A monster who's killed dozens. Destroyed families. I know exactly who he is, I said simply. She blinked, surprised. And you stay anyway? He's not just a monster. He's a man who fought his own biology to keep from hurting me. A man tried to be better. Your family used Omegas like objects until they died. Vincenzo stopped himself. I met her eyes. So yes, I know who he is. And I choose him anyway. Vincenzo's hand tightened on my waist. Mrs. Castellano left, her expression hard. You didn't have to defend me, Vincenzo said quietly. Yes, I did. Because what she said was wrong. You're more than destruction. His hand cupped my face. I love you, he said suddenly. I know I have no right. But I love you, Simeon. Desperately. The words should have terrified me. They didn't. I love you too, I whispered. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it's complicated and started wrong. I love you. He kissed me right there on the balcony, claiming me publicly. Simeon belonged to Vincenzo Moretti. And God help anyone who tried to touch him. We made love for the first time that night. Not in cold clinical transaction, but with tenderness and care and something that felt like healing. He was gentle, checking in constantly, making sure I was okay. And when it was over, when we lay tangled together, I finally understood something. Love could grow anywhere, even in the darkest soil. I'm going to marry you, Vincenzo said against my hair. Not because I own you, because I want to choose you every day for the rest of my life. Ask me properly, I said, smiling. He slid out of bed and knelt beside it. Naked, vulnerable, more human than I'd ever seen him. Simeon, will you marry me? Not because of a contract, but because you choose me, and I choose you, and we want to build something real. Yes, I said, tears streaming down my face. Yes, I choose you. He slipped back into bed, pulling me close. I don't deserve this. Probably not, but I'm here anyway. 6 months later, we married. Just Antonio as witness and a judge who asked no questions. We promised to choose each other, to protect each other, to build a life that honored how far we'd come. The first year was hard. More attacks, more violence, more nights when he came home covered in blood. But we worked through it. I set boundaries. He tried to shield me while being honest. I started showing my art publicly. Critics called it hauntingly beautiful and unflinchingly dark. They didn't know I was painting my own story, the journey from cage to choice. Vincenzo came to every opening, stood in the background, letting me have the spotlight. but I always found him in the crowd, his eyes on me with pride. We had terrible fights where I'd threaten to leave, and he'd dare me to. But we always came back, always chose each other again. One evening, about 18 months into our marriage, I found Vincenzo holding Marco's book. "Do you think he'd forgive me?" he asked quietly. I sat beside him. "I think he'd see that you stopped, that you gave me choices, that you try to be better. I still do terrible things. Yes, but you also love me. Protect me. Give me a life I chose." I took his hand. We're broken pieces that somehow fit together. And that's enough. 2 years into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. Male omega pregnancies were rare, but not impossible with a strong bond. The doctor confirmed it at 8 weeks. I told Vincenzo that night, terrified of his reaction. Instead, he dropped to his knees and cried. "A baby," he whispered, his hands on my stomach. "Our baby. Are you okay with this?" "I'm more than okay." He looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I never thought I'd have this. A family. A chance to be better than what my father was." "You'll be a good father," I said softly. "I'll protect you both. With everything I have. I swear it." And standing there with his hands on my stomach, his tears on my skin, I understood something profound. We'd started in darkness, in a transaction that should have destroyed us both. But we'd built light anyway. Built love. Built a family. Not because it was easy, but because we chose to. Every single day. I've been 18 years old and sold to a 50-year-old alpha who wanted to use me, who bought me like property, who had every intention of taking what he paid for. But something had shifted. He'd seen me, really seen me. And in that seeing, we'd both been transformed. I was 21 now, a husband, soon to be a father, an artist, free in ways I'd never imagined when I signed that contract. And Vincenzo, he was still ruthless, still dangerous, still everything the mafia had made him. But with me, he was also tender, patient, capable of a love so fierce it sometimes took my breath away. "I love you," I said, my hand covering his on my stomach. "I love you," he returned. "My Simeon, my choice, my everything." And standing there, feeling our baby move beneath our joined hands, I understood the truth. Love could grow anywhere, even in the darkest soil, even from the most broken beginnings. Ours had grown from a transaction, from ownership and fear and desperation. But it had transformed into something real, something chosen, something worth every difficult moment it took to get here. I'd been sold to the ruthless alpha mafia boss, and somehow, impossibly, beautifully, I'd become his salvation, just as he'd become mine. The end. Thank you so much for staying with us through Simeon and Vincenzo's dark, complicated, but ultimately beautiful journey, besties. Their story wasn't easy. It was raw, challenging, and pushed us to think about redemption, choice, and whether love can truly bloom from the darkest soil. We know some of you hated Vincenzo at first. Good. He earned that hate. Some of you probably thought Simeon was foolish for staying. We understand. But that's the complexity of real human emotion. Messy, illogical, driven by needs we can't always explain. This wasn't a perfect love story. It was a broken one. Two damaged people finding something precious in the wreckage of a terrible beginning. And maybe that's more honest than any fairy tale could ever be. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, made you cry, made you believe in impossible redemption, show us some love. Hit that like button and let us know you were here for this journey. Drop a comment telling us what you thought. Did Vincenzo earn his redemption? What was the moment you started believing in them? What scene hit you the hardest? We read every single comment, and your thoughts fuel our passion for creating these stories. Subscribe to Cozy BL Corner if you haven't already, and smash that notification bell so you never miss our next emotionally complex narrative. We're committed to bringing you BL stories that don't shy away from darkness, but always find their way to light. Share this video with someone who loves age gap romance, dark redemption arcs, forbidden love, and stories about people fighting to be better than their worst moments. Let's build a community that appreciates nuanced, realistic portrayals of complicated love. And here's something special. If you want to see what happens when Simeon and Vincenzo become parents, When Marco is born and they navigate fatherhood together, drop a comment saying Marco's story, and if we get enough requests, we'll create a continuation following their journey into parenthood. Until next time, besties, remember that love isn't always pretty, redemption isn't always clean, but both are always worth fighting for. People can change. Monsters can learn to be human. And sometimes the darkest beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. Stay cozy, keep believing in complicated love, and we'll see you in the next story. Thank you for being part of this community. You make every story worth telling.